Hello and welcome back to our decomp tutorial series. Today we are going to go over basic song insertion. Now we're not going to get too complicated into some of the things, especially with creating voice groups, but we are going to learn how to insert a song, just a basic MIDI song. So, our Pokemon World repository allows us to use MIDI songs, which is pretty, nice in terms of what we can accomplish using it, making our own music. So if you aren't too familiar with MIDI music, I am going to be using this free program. It's called Anvil Studio, and if you look it up, there's a free version that you can download, and you can use it to create your MIDI songs, and we're going to be using it to check out some of our voice group stuff, and adding loop points and a couple things. And I'm going to go over all of that briefly, but again, voice groups we'll talk about more in another video. So to begin with, so this is our setup. I'm not going to have it play because it's going to sound loud, but I have 4 different instruments here, and they are just 2 different copy and pasted, sets of notes. It's not anything complicated. It's not some, nice orchestra going on. I just have a trumpet and an acoustic grand playing the same thing, a French horn and a tuba playing the same thing. And it's just the lead line and the bass line of the Great Sea from the Wind Waker. So if we wanted to actually edit our music, we can use this piano roll or the staff, or if you're doing guitar music, you can even do tab. But here we can add notes if we want to. We can, create our whole song here using this piano roll if you want to. And that, would be how you'd create your MIDI if you don't have, a different program, a paid program. I'm not going to get too into actually how to, create music. That's kind of a bit of a outside of the realm of ROM hacking topic. But when you have your song created, when you have it all up here, you have your different instruments for your different voices that you can choose from here. You are going to need to do a couple things. First, you're going to want to create loop points. If you're playing the song through like as a town song, when it loops, you're going to want it to loop in specific points probably. So you can create loop points by dragging. I just added a note by clicking on this bar here and finding the part where you want to have your loop, and then you're going to go to Q and you're going to go to New, and to start your loop you're going to do a left brace, and then when you want to end your loop you're going to scroll to the end and you're going to do the exact same thing. You're going to put your arrow there, you're going to do New, and then you're going to end it with a brace, and those are going to be your loop points in the MIDI file. And the game will handle that looping for you, so you don't have to worry about it. That's just how the MIDI handles looping with those brackets. When you have done that, when you have your instruments set up the way that you want them to, which we'll go into a bit more near the end of the video when we're talking about voice groups, and you have your loop points and your file is, you got all your notes that you want, all of the music that you want in the game, we're going to export MIDI format 0 file. We are going to go to our expansion, we're going to go to Sound, Songs, MIDI. Those are the folders, Sound, Songs, MIDI. And then we're just going to name it MUS Great Sea in this case. MUS Great Sea, you name it whatever you want. I'm not going to save it again because it's already saved, but that is all we're going to do for this moment inside of this program. Now there are things that you need to be aware of, like sometimes the game can only handle a certain number of notes at a time. I believe it's 5. And if you have more than that, some notes will take priority and some will fall out, and it's not going to sound good. So you can use the program to ensure that you're only playing a certain set of notes at the same time. But we'll get into that in the next video when we get more in depth into creating these songs. So we just have a very basic song set up, so we're going to go into adding it into the code. Now there are 4 main files that you need to edit to add it into the code, other than having a voice group for it, which again we'll get to at the end. We're going to do loadscript.txt. This is in the root folder of the game. It just includes a lot of the files, the data files for our for our compilation. So here we are going to just add this line here. We're just going to, copy and paste a line, down one, and then we're going to rename it to mus great C. This is just our object file for the MIDI, and we're going to save this, and we're going to move on to the next one. So I'm going to go to songs.h. We're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom, and we're going to create a new constant. So this is the actual constant that if we're, trying to call it from the game, if you're in Porimap and you're looking at the song, this is the constant there for that song. So we're just going to copy the last one, and we're going to paste it, and then we're going to rename it to whatever we want our constant name to be, mus great C in this case. Make sure that the number is changed. It's just going to be the next one in the order. If you've already added 5 songs, then yours next one is going to be 6, 16, or 15, or whatever. So here is the constant, and we are going to move on to songtable.inc. This is just the table of all of the sounds and songs and sound effects, and we are going to copy one of these music ones, and we are going to paste it down here. I mean, you can copy this one if you want to, but the difference is the 0, 0 versus the 2, 2. I'm not entirely sure what the difference of those mean, because the difference is usually between the actual songs and the sound effects, whereas the songs have 0, 0 and the sound effects have 2, 2. It obviously has something to do with that, whether it has to do with looping or priority, or both. I'm not entirely sure, but if you're adding a song that you're going to want to play in the background, like for a town or a route, then you are going to do 0, 0. Song, mus great C, 0, 0, whatever the name of your song is. So we've added the songs table, we've added a constant, we've added the object file to be read. Now we need to edit this file, songs.mk, which is also in our root directory, our main PokeEmerald folder, and this is going to be called when we're compiling, and it's going to actually take the MIDI file and you put it in a format that our game is going to be able to read better. Now we are just going to scroll down and copy one of these other songs and paste it down here, and we're going to have to change a little bit about it. So these two things here, this is volume. I made it 90 instead of 76, because some of these songs are 90, but you can put it whatever you want as the volume. This one here is the voice group, and again, we're going to get into it in a moment, but this one is very important. The number is going to be the number of the voice group, and that voice group is going to depend on whether you're creating your own voice group, you're using a different voice group that's already in the game, whatever the voice group you're using, this is the number that you're going to add there. So in my case, I'm doing voice group 191, so this is going to be 191 here. Now, other than actually having a voice group that lines up with your song, which is a little complicated and we're going to get into, this is all that you need to do. If you have the voice group already in mind, or if you created your song according to a previous voice group, then this is going to work fine. We've added all of the things that we need to put it in the game. Now we have to actually make the game play the song by giving the constant somewhere in the game's code. So in my case, I'm replacing the surf music with the great C music, obviously. So this is the file where the surf music is played. So I just changed mus surf to mus great C. And now, because I have this voice group set up, this is all going to be fine. It's going to play, it's going to sound good. You can change it in Porimap here if you're looking at a route and you want to change the route music. You can change it, the song in Porimap, just like you would normally, and you can use your new song now. So here is so that is all you need to do to actually add the song, assuming you have the voice group. Now I'm going to briefly talk about voice groups, but again, we're going to talk about them more in depth in a future video that will be out soon. I just need some more time to get it together, because I want to be comprehensive. I don't want to miss anything, and I don't want to get anything wrong. But we are going to start to talk about voice groups. So here is an example of a voice group. This is one that I created. It's in the voice groups, sound voice groups folder, and these are all of the voice groups that we have access to. Now, it looks a little daunting at first. There's a lot of copy and pasted nonsense, but what this voice group is, if you think about it in terms of the instrument, think about it in terms of the instruments that we have in the Anvil Studio. The numbers here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way, you know, to 128. These instruments that we have here are the positions of the MIDI file of and of this table. So if I, considering these two lines here are junk, you know, they're not junk, but we don't need to ignore them. So 3 is actually 1, 4 is 2, 5 is 3. So whatever this number is here, whatever the line number is, we subtract 2, and that's, you know, our instrument number. So 3 is 1, so this is our first instrument here in this list, which happens to be acoustic grand. So if we choose acoustic grand here, which I did here, so if this instrument here is acoustic grand, this is taking up the 1 spot in our MIDI data. Now, in our voice group, we don't have to give it the acoustic grand. I did here, but we could give it a random one. I could give it this nylon string guitar voice direct sound here, and it would still work. It would just not sound like a grand piano. It would sound like this nylon string guitar thing instead. Because the location in the MIDI file that we're saving the track to, we're saving the channel to, is that this channel is being saved to the 1 spot, and this program is treating the 1 spot as an acoustic grand, but our voice group can treat it as a different thing if we want to. It doesn't have to treat it as an acoustic grand, but we want it to be treated as an acoustic grand. So this here is this is one of the piano options that we can use, and it's actually splitting a voice group. So it's taking a whole voice group and putting that entire voice group in as one instrument that we can use like in our table. And this happens you know, a decent bit throughout the voice groups. If we look at voice group 05, which is the one that's being taken, you can see this is just a piano, 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 piano. These are just piano voices that are combined into one voice group that we use when we want our grand piano. Now, how do we find voices? How do we know what we are going to, you know, be adding in? So let's say I want to, you know, add in an instrument here. I'm going to go to the tuba. So this tuba here is 59 here. So this is instrument 59, and I want this tuba to play as a tuba when I am in, you know, our Emerald game, when it's converted and compiled down. So 59 plus 2 is 61, so we go to line 61. I've already added it in here, voice group 08. Scroll up, voice group 08. So this is, we see these are the tubas here, but if I'm like, well, you already found that, so of course you know where it is. If I type in tuba though, I can, there's only so much that's gonna pop up. I see down here, here in this direct sound data.inc file, there are a bunch of different, this is the files, direct sound data.inc, that actually includes all of these direct sound samples. So you can search through this file for an instrument if you want to try to find an instrument, and it'll show you what the names of these instruments are, this SC80 Pro Tuba 39, and then you can search this inside of the search bar to find where it's added in a voice group, and then you can copy this. If you wanted to just copy one tuba, you can copy this one item here and then go to your voice group, and instead of this table that I have here, you can just put this one tuba down, and this is this tuba, and it's gonna sound like a tuba. But if in this case we see when we look for the tuba, it's its own voice group that then gets called. It's really small like this. When it looks like that, we are like, oh, this is a voice group that gets called, so let's search for the actual voice group. And if we search for the voice group, you know, again, we get our voice group, but we also get all of these other voice groups that include this split voice group. So voice group 17 has voice key split voice group 008. So we can just copy this, and then we can put it into you know, here. I mean, that's what I did. That's how it got there, is I copied it and I pasted it here in line 61, which is instrument 59, which is the tuba. So we're writing to 59, we're writing to the slot 59 in our MIDI file, and then in this code, we're assigning slot 59 to be this voice, and this voice is, coming from this voice group here, but it doesn't have to. Again, it can be a direct voice, a voice direct sound if you want it to be. So we have our key split voice groups here, but we also have our direct sound voices here, and that's how you create your voice group. So you go through and you look for all of your instruments and you try to find equivalents of them, and wherever you have whatever number you have it saved as, so if you have it saved as 19 here, you're using the rock organ here. When you're putting it in the code, you go to 21 because that's 19 plus 2, and then you're going to want to put your rock organ, you're going to want to find whatever in the game's code, in the direct sound data, or in a different voice group that you have found, whatever version of this line that you discover that you want to throw in that line in 21, you just copy and paste it there, and then it'll line up properly, so when you actually run the game and the song is playing, it'll use the correct voice. Now, what all of these numbers mean, I am not entirely sure. There is probably only a few people who do know, and very well, if you're watching this video in a couple months, the voice groups could be entirely reworked. These could all be constants with nice, all capitalized names that we have, and not just random numbers that we have to try to make sense of. I would not be surprised at all if this looks very different in the next year or so, but for now, this is what voice groups look like, and I'm not entirely sure what the numbers look like. They probably have to do with things like volume and things like that are involved in creating the song, the balance, the volume. But don't take that with a grain of salt. I have no idea. I just know that when you copy the used versions of the voices, that it usually turns out to sound pretty okay. Now, you don't have to create your own voice group. If you do create your own voice group, you have to add it to this voicegroups.inc file, soundvoicegroups.inc. You have to add it to the bottom. So we go down to the bottom and we just .include, and then we include our new voice group. Make sure to do that if you're adding your own voice group. But you can take a old voice group if you're just like, the best way to do it would be, to go to songs.mk, make sure to change this to your voice group number, but we are going to, just look at a song, we're like, well, the Birch Lab song, it's voice group G33, so it's voice group 33. So if we go to voice group 33, here is this voice group. Now, if we open in here, file, open song, what was the song that I just looked up? MUS O Club? No, what was it? Birch Lab. Sorry. MUS Birch Lab. Here we go. Open. Do I want to save changes? No. So here we see all of these different, all of the different instruments that this uses, and we can see these are the instruments that line up with our 33. So if we, with our voice group 33, so if we create our own, if you create your song to begin with this into account, with the fact that we know that these voices line up in 33 to what we want them to be, you can use these voices and to create your own song in this program in Anvil Studio or whatever, and then when you go to import it, you just give it G033 as your voice group, and that's just gonna line up to this voice group, and it's gonna have the fretless bass and these tables that are the flute and everything that this voice group uses. So if you want to co-opt a voice group, that's completely possible, and I would look at a old song, open its MIDI file, and look at its instruments to be able to tell what the voice groups are. Now, I'm gonna stop talking about voice groups because, again, it's a bit of a long topic, and I'm going to get more in depth into it, especially when it comes to drums and split voices, because again, I'm sure you're a little confused on the topic of the split voice groups, and I will try to clear that up later. But for now, this is all you need to know to create your voice group. So we have added our song to the load script. We've added our songs to songs.mk. We have added our song constant to songs.h. We have added our song to the table, and then we have created a voice group for it where we have gone in and we have looked at the instrument number, and then we have gone to that number plus 2, 51 in the case of what we looked at, 49, and we have given it a value, a voice, and that allows, that lets it play from that voice from that slot. We have added our voice group into the .include at the bottom because that is how the game recognizes the voice groups. So we've added in our song to everything, we've created a new voice group, we have added our voice group to the list of voice groups, and we have made our song play in the overworld. So now all we need to do is listen to it. So here we have, Poke Emerald pulled up. I've already compiled it before I started the video, just to save time. So we are going to dive into the water, and I'm going to unmute it. And here we go. As you can see, or hear, I guess, it is playing the Great Sea theme. Well, that's enough for now. Anyway, if you have any questions, make sure to leave a comment here or preferably in the Discord. Again, this is a complicated topic and voice groups can be confusing. They can be very confusing. And I will try to cover them more in depth. We're gonna do a more complicated song with drums, and we're going to insert it in. I'm probably going to do it all on screen so that we can actually see it step by step, instead of having it done already, because the voice groups are annoying for beginners, and it's nice to have it shown for you directly in front of you, worked through. So again, our sounds for voice groups in this directsounddata.inc. We load our songs into our load script. We have to add the object file. We let the compiler know, well, it's down here, but we let the compiler know what our song is called and where it can find it to compile it down into the .s format. We give it a constant in songs.h so that we can access it from the code. We add it to the song table so that we can call it from the code again, and then we, create our voice group, add our voice group, and then we compile, and that's it. That's all. So, again, if you have any comments, leave it in the Discord. Otherwise, we will see you on the next one. I hope that this helped.